Welcome to Business Talk here on Business Tech. Now, tech giant Google recently announced the launch of a cloud region in South Africa. It's first on the continent. It's playing catch up here to other top providers like Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure, which have made inroads into the continent, but just a couple of years ago, so not that far behind. Google said it's also building dedicated cloud interconnect sites, which link users on-prem networks with Google's grid in Nairobi in Kenya and Lagos in Nigeria, and obviously here, South Africa, Cape Town and Johannesburg. Gregory MacLennan is CEO at Digicloud. And Greg, great to have you back on the show. South Africa now joins Google's global network of 35 cloud regions, 106 zones worldwide. Why is this announcement so significant for Africa?
For Africa, it's super significant. And again, there's always expletives and everything else one can say because we get so excited. But I think in the past, there's always been this question mark over cloud technologies in Africa. And you know, when we look at customer stories and you speak to customers and you bring the story to the forefront, it's always some international company. It's someone in the UK, it's someone in the US, it's someone in the Far East, and they're doing amazing things. And that's not what we see here. You know, in Africa, there's many discussions still today, 2022, around things like connectivity and the likes. Last year in October at Google for Africa, Google announced $1 billion of investment in Africa. And that was a massive step because what that spoke to was not only Google's willingness to move Africa forward in terms of digitally enabling, you know, 1 billion plus people in Africa, but more importantly, putting their money where their mouth was, right? And what businesses, so the investment is important. They talk about jobs, they talk about many things, and for you and me using all Google technologies, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Google Cloud, you know, all of those different technologies, that was a great announcement, and it was wonderful to see. They brought the Equiano cable. That cable landed sort of June, July in Melkbos, and then that brought with it a huge amount of capacity to the African continent, not just South Africa, but at the many places that it's connected through the African continent. So like that has brought a lot of excitement, a lot of Google's technology closer. The missing piece to the entire puzzle was the cloud region. So if you're a business, if you're an enterprise, and you turn around and saying like, you've brought the cable, you're investing, businesses are benefiting from it, we're able to see it, consumers are loving the fact that they're getting, you know, better experiences on your various products. But as a business in Africa, if I have a need, and that need might be driven by a compliance requirement because, you know, you're a bank or whatever the story is, or it could be driven by potentially a latency requirement, but you know, that can sometimes be over-specified, or it could be driven by a pure business requirement. That will now be seen to in South Africa, very specifically with the local cloud region. But even more importantly is if you look at the rest of Africa, they're now able to host their data within Africa. And when we can talk about things like the African Union, we can talk about relations between countries, like all of this is impactful for Africa, not just South Africa. And that excites us a lot because discussions we've had around Google and Google technologies, in some cases it's been around, but where's Google? Where's the investment? Where's the commitment? I think all of this speaks to a commitment that exceeds many of the competitors.
Because I was going to say, we've got the other hyperscalers with cloud regions here. So, you know, why would this announcement be so significant if you can access those other hyperscalers? But I think you've answered that, and the point that you raised around those products and services that Google offers or YouTube or anything like that being so much more enhanced by this. What do you see as the impact for data residency regulations?
So that's a good question. I think for years now in South Africa, quite specifically, we've had innumerable discussions around POPI compliance, GDPR. Where is my data hosted? Is it POPI compliant? And, you know, the simplest way to be POPI compliant is, you know, is it hosted in South Africa? Tick a box, I'm done. You know, is the thinking. Google has been POPI compliant through the use of Google Workspace and the likes for years. They've got the little POPI badge, they've done all the work they need to, but POPI compliance is you're able to be POPI compliant, but you require the internal processes to enforce POPI compliance. So what this does and what this makes things is, what this really adds value to is to be able to speak to the fact that your data can be resident in South Africa. And what that speaks to is not necessarily POPI compliance, but if you are dealing with government regulations or Fires Act, etc., where there's specific industries that they have to have their data resident in South Africa, that makes a difference. Also, if you are going to be running an ERP system in Google now, and latency for your point of sale system becomes mission critical, that now is addressed. So even though the data residency of the physical data and POPI compliance would have been impacted, the fact that you can now have your data in country might also be impacting your ability to implement things like point of sale and ERP into a Google solution.
And with that, does that come with a local dedicated office and team helping customers on the ground here in South Africa if they do encounter any issues, or if they want to sit down and talk solutions?
So from a Google perspective, Google has, I'm going to say, massively increased their sales team, but their sales team is a factor larger than it was a year ago. And Google continues, part of that $1 billion investment is obviously to grow the Google team. But more importantly than that, and this is where Digicloud comes in, we've obviously been working for years now in terms of growing out an ecosystem of partners, but not just Google Cloud partners, but Google Cloud partners with specialist skills in different areas. We really believe there's no such thing as a cloud partner, because no one partner will know everything there is to know about cloud. When you think of cloud, is it data? Is it machine learning? Is it VMs? Is it Kubernetes and containers? There are so many aspects to when people speak about cloud. We've worked very hard to grow an ecosystem of specialized partners. So if you want to talk about security, you want to talk about data analytics, you want to talk about machine learning, we bring you the right partner to have those discussions. To your question, is there someone to speak to about now? Yes, absolutely. There are many individual companies to speak to, and all of them are focused within an area in cloud, and we can point you to the right one to speak to.
Yeah, and it's so important to have that confidence to be able to collaborate with individuals who are really specialists in those particular areas. It sounds like it's going to be a very good time to be a consumer. It looks like we're going to have lots more competition, and that's always a good thing for consumer. How do you see this impacting competition and the opportunity for providing Google services in Africa? How big is that?
I think what is really important for us as consumers, and whenever you're looking at any, not just a cloud solution, but any technical solution for your business, the advice I would always give myself as a consumer or any business that's consuming it is you always want to use best of breed. Many of the cloud offerings are comparable between each other, and you can say this, it's the same, but what you really need to do is you need to find the cloud provider that provides the solution you're looking for that's absolutely best of breed for your business need. And I fully advocate multi-cloud approaches or hybrid cloud. Have some stuff on-prem, have some stuff in the cloud, especially when we're looking at risk profiles and the like. The reason why this is important, now that you've got so many competitors with local regions and with their services locally supported, with teams of people on the ground, with partners left, right, and center, is you're able to now use best of breed. If I'm able to just pivot it very specifically to what Google's really good at, I mean, if we're talking about data and analytics, if we're talking about machine learning and AI, if you're talking about Kubernetes and containerization, you know, Google's absolute leader in that field. If you're talking about the network, obviously with Google's cable landing in multiple strands, with the region being here, with the interconnect nodes, best of the best network. That's not to say that everything must go through Google, but it does give you a really rock solid base to put various services and use the best of breed from Google.
I mean, some might look at it and say rather cynically that the market is potentially overtraded. Do you take that view? Do you think the market opportunity is significant to accommodate 3 hyperscalers?
And it's probably more than 3 now. If you look at the hyperscalers out of China, so it's probably even more than that. I wouldn't say we're overtraded. I would say that Africa as a region has been underserviced for years. Right. So it's always, I mean, we feel Africa's pain and problems, you know, all the time, and we're always sort of the last to get the love. It's kind of what it feels like. I think now is the time where there's enough competition, and we've now got best of breed from everyone. So if you said to me overtraded, I would say no. I would say we're finally at the point where I, as the consumer, or I, as the business owner, have the choice of everything I need to be able to buy what is best for my business. And in honesty, that doesn't mean everything from one. That could mean a bit from here, there, and everywhere else, so that I come up with the best solution for my business. Importantly, you know, in the last couple of years, it's always been around innovation. How do I innovate? How do I move forward? Now with Russia and Ukraine and recessions and everything else, many customers are saying, I'm spending X amount with either on-prem or in cloud, or I can't get the components because it's on-prem, or what's the story there? Now's the time for businesses to look internally, say, like, how can I save money? How can I optimize? How can I modernize that I'm built for the future and not having to look at buying more hardware to keep scaling, And that's where we believe Google is a great place to have a discussion. Change is something that can really help save your business cost. It can help modernize it in such a way that you're built for the future so that you're not worried about additional investment later down the line. And with everything that's coming out of the States and Europe and all the rest of it, wars and all the rest aside, there are impacts on African businesses that can be addressed with a multitude of cloud vendors. So you really get the best value, but also the best fit for purpose for your business.
Yeah, I was having a roundtable with chief operating officers and CIOs the other day, and the overall theme was they're under so much pressure to do more with less, kind of resource constrained, but expected to deliver, even more value. And I think this is where you should be looking at the potential that now lies in something like a cloud region that Google has recently announced in South Africa to help you trigger those cost savings and solutions. Greg, thanks for your time as always. A real pleasure chatting to you, Gregory MacLennan, CEO of Digicloud Africa, talking about a very exciting announcement. Google announcing the launch of its first cloud region in South Africa. Well, it's its first on the continent, and it was here in South Africa. Greg, thanks for your time.
Thank you.